Hello, today I'm going to describe the process of breathing and how the lungs work. My name is Kara Nutt, and I am a BSN student at Aspen University. The lungs are a negative pressure cavity, so an inhalation creates a vacuum in the pleural cavity, which I've got this little model here. So the pleural cavity is the space in here between the balloons and the outside. So when you inhale, your diaphragm, represented by this bag here, contracts and pulls down flat. And when that happens, if you watch the balloons, you got to watch very carefully because it doesn't do very well, but they inflate. And then when it relaxes, they deflate. So the process of breathing is contracting the muscles, the diaphragm mainly, and the external intercostal muscles that lie on the outside of the ribs. They contract, which opens up this space and creates a vacuum inside that pleural cavity. Now, in the lungs, the balloons would almost be resting against, which is why the muscles move to kind of pull that open. But the bottle can't do that. So you just have to imagine that the balloons are bigger and are filling, your lungs are filling the entire cavity. There's not dead space, empty space in there like there is in the bottle. But they contract. Exhale is just relaxing. Those muscles relax, and it goes back to just a very basic. So when we're doing the spirometer to measure the capacity, what they're doing is they pull in a big breath as big as they can, and they blow it back out, but then they use their abdominal muscles and the inner interstitial muscles to then compress. You can see really, if you look real close here, how the balloons shrink up a little bit more. I think I've lost my seal. There we go. So when you push in, the balloons shrink up really big. And then take a breath, pull them out, relaxed, and expelling all your air. So that's how that works. And the difference in capacity for different people can be influenced by their age, their gender, their height. So basically, however big that space is and how big it can be will make a difference in the capacity. Additionally, illnesses such as cancer, pneumonia, a pneumothorax can affect the capacity because it'll take up some of the space. A mass will take up some of the space. Pneumonia fills some of the space with inside the balloon with fluid so that there's no room for the air. And a pneumothorax will create kind of like this, all this dead space in here. It can either be fluid or air in a pneumothorax. So that'll affect the capacity. Asthma and COPD are illnesses that affect the gas exchange more than the capacity. Asthma affects the rate of air exchanged right in here because these represent your bronchi. And in asthma, they spasm. And when they spasm, where'd the other one go? There it is. So the normal one is about that big. Nice big. When they spasm, they shrink up. So you can imagine, get that lined up there for you. You can imagine how much less air can come through this smaller tube in the same amount of time when you take a breath. One breath, more air is going to come through the bigger tube than the spasmed tube. So that's going to affect your exchange rate. COPD affects it the other way. So asthma affects the air coming in. COPD affects the air going out. And it has more to do with, some with the spasming, but also with the retained air. So the COPD have a barrel chest. It doesn't compress as well as a normal chest does, so that your lungs don't fully empty out. But we're going to talk a little bit more about asthma and how that is managed. So the priorities for a patient with asthma, you imagine again, you're going through these smaller tubes, and you want to get as much oxygen through that smaller tube as you. The higher the oxygen concentration in the air going through that, the better the gas exchange for the person with asthma. Second, you want to get this back up to this size. So you're going to administer a bronchodilator, such as come in a rescue, can be put into a nebulizer, oxygen getting the vasodilator at the same time. And then once you get them open, you need a corticosteroid to keep them open. Otherwise, they're just going to want to spasm right back down. So the corticosteroid that is often used is prednisone for an oral, like a tablet that you take, or a, I'm trying to pronounce it, fluticasone, Fluticasone, is an inhaled one that then some asthmatics are on that every day for the rest of their lives because they have such frequent asthma attacks. They need that preventative. And then they have the rescue inhaler in case they have a asthma attack. So for the asthmatic patient, education is very important. You would want them to keep a journal to identify triggers. For example, I know that rainy weather triggers my asthma. There's some mold or something in the ground that is fine as long as it's not wet. And when it gets wet, it triggers my asthma. For some, it's exercise induced. Others have allergies such as pet or seasonal allergies that can trigger the asthma attack. So you teach them to keep a journal so that they can figure out what they've been around right before the asthma attack to see if we can figure out those triggers so they can avoid them in the future. Teaching them to always carry their rescue inhaler is very important, and it's usually an albuterol, gray or red little inhaler. Teaching them the difference between the rescue and the preventative inhaler, because the corticosteroid inhaler is not going to open those passageways up. It'll keep them open, but it will not open them. So they have to take the rescue inhaler first before the preventative or the steroid. So they want to always have their rescue inhaler with them. They may not have time to get to it if it is not on their person. And it's terrifying when you get caught and you realize you don't have it and you can't breathe. So they need it. And teaching them when to seek additional help. When they have taken 3 of their rescue inhalers, 3 doses in succession, 20 minutes apart, and the attack is not alleviating, it is continuing, they're still breathing through this tiny little hole, then they need to seek advanced medical care. They're going to need oxygen. They're going to probably need a steroid shot. They may need to go on oral steroids instead of just the inhaled for a while to kind of break that cycle so they can begin to breathe again. So they need to seek out care at the emergency center or urgent care, or if they're lucky enough to, that works too, but they need to see extra care. The community resources that are available for our clients, quite a few, and the CDC has actually grouped them all onto one page, cdc.gov/asthma/links. And you'll find links there that will take allergy, asthma, and immunology, the American Academy of Family Physicians, Allergy and Asthma Network, the American Lung Association, the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America, and others that can link you to resources for extra knowledge. And so that's pretty much it. That's how your lungs work. For asthma and how to